Welcome to our channel. Today we're diving into one of the most defining moments in modern history, the September 11th attacks and the global war on terror that followed. This event reshaped the world, influenced foreign policy, and raised questions that linger to this day. Stick with us as we unravel the timeline, causes and consequences of this seismic event in world history. Chapter 1. The morning of 9/11. It was a clear and sunny Tuesday morning on September 11th, 2001. Life in the United States seemed ordinary, until it wasn't. At 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. 18 minutes later, United Airlines Flight 175 slammed into the South Tower. Chaos erupted as the world watched these iconic skyscrapers burn. At 9:37 a.m., a third plane, American Airlines Flight 77, hit the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia. A fourth plane, United Airlines Flight 93, was also hijacked, but this time passengers fought back. The plane crashed into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, preventing an attack on the suspected target, either the US Capitol or the White House. By 10:28 a.m., both towers of the World Trade Center had collapsed, killing thousands. In total, nearly 3,000 people lost their lives that day, including civilians, first responders, and passengers. This attack wasn't just an assault on the United States, it was a message to the world. Chapter 2. Who was behind it? The attacks were orchestrated by Al-Qaeda, a militant Islamist group led by Osama bin Laden. Al-Qaeda's grievances stemmed from US foreign policy in the Middle East, including support for Israel, the presence of US troops in Saudi Arabia, and economic sanctions against Iraq. Osama bin Laden, once supported by the US during the Soviet-Afghan War, had turned against his former allies. From his base in Afghanistan, he planned this attack as a means to rally followers and strike at what he saw as a symbol of Western dominance. Chapter 3. The immediate response. In the hours after the attacks, the United States was in shock. Airports across the country were shut down, and the government enacted emergency measures. President George W. Bush, addressing the nation, vowed to hunt down those responsible. On September 14th, Congress passed the Authorization for Use of Military Force, AUMF, giving the president broad powers to combat terrorism. The global response was overwhelmingly supportive. Even countries like Russia and China, often at odds with the US, offered their condolences and cooperation. Chapter 4. The invasion of Afghanistan. The first major action in the war on terror was the invasion of Afghanistan in October 2001. The US and its allies targeted the Taliban regime, which had provided sanctuary to Al-Qaeda. Within weeks, the Taliban was overthrown, but the war was far from over. Osama bin Laden evaded capture, retreating to the mountainous border region between Afghanistan and Pakistan. This marked the beginning of a prolonged and costly conflict that would last over 2 decades. Chapter 5. Homeland Security and the Patriot Act. Back home, the US government took unprecedented measures to prevent another attack. The Department of Homeland Security was established, consolidating multiple agencies to enhance national security. The Transportation Security Administration, or TSA, transformed how Americans traveled, implementing rigorous airport screenings. The Patriot Act, passed in October 2001, expanded surveillance capabilities, allowing the government to monitor phone calls, emails, and financial transactions. While supporters argued these measures were necessary, critics raised concerns about privacy and civil liberties. Chapter 6. The Iraq War. In 2003, the US shifted its focus to Iraq, claiming that Saddam Hussein's regime possessed weapons of mass destruction, WMDs, and had links to Al-Qaeda. Despite widespread skepticism and lack of concrete evidence, the US, along with the UK, invaded Iraq in March 2003. The initial invasion was swift, toppling Saddam's government in just weeks. But what followed was years of insurgency, sectarian violence, and instability. No WMDs were ever found, leading many to question the motives behind the war. Critics argue that the Iraq War distracted from the fight against Al-Qaeda and destabilized the region. Chapter 7. The Global War on Terror. The war on terror expanded beyond Afghanistan and Iraq. The US conducted counter-terrorism operations in Yemen, Somalia, Pakistan, and other countries. drone strikes became a key tactic, targeting terrorist leaders but also causing civilian casualties, which fueled anti-American sentiment. Guantanamo Bay, a detention facility in Cuba, became infamous for holding terror suspects indefinitely without trial. Reports of torture and abuse at Guantanamo and other black sites further tarnished America's image. Chapter 8. The killing of Osama bin Laden. After nearly a decade of pursuit, US Navy SEALs located and killed Osama bin Laden in Abbottabad, Pakistan on May 2nd, 2011. The operation, authorized by President Barack Obama, was hailed as a significant victory. However, it did not mark the end of the war on terror. Chapter 9. The aftermath and legacy. The war on terror has cost trillions of dollars and claimed hundreds of thousands of lives. In Afghanistan, the Taliban regained power in 2021, raising questions about the effectiveness of 2 decades of intervention. The war also reshaped geopolitics, with alliances strained and new power dynamics emerging. Domestically, the balance between security and civil liberties continues to be a contentious issue. Conclusion. The 9/11 attacks and the war on terror reshaped the world in profound ways. They revealed the complexities of global politics, the cost of military interventions, and the challenges of balancing security with freedom. As we reflect on this history, it's essential to learn from the past to build a safer and more just future. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into world history and current events. Thank you for watching.